Welcome to the AEC Viewpoints. We are meeting at a time of profound global change. Around the world, we are seeing trade rules that are evolving, inflation is fluctuating, and even growth patterns are shifting. While global investment flows have slowed worldwide, these shifts are also opening up new opportunities for transformation as well as renewed sense of purpose. Here in ASEAN, our story is different. With the GDP as well as our trade, each of it is nearing a level of almost $4 trillion. Our region truly remains resilient. We are seeing strong manufacturing, we are seeing robust public investment, and also our role as a technology export hub is truly keeping us competitive. In fact, foreign direct investment into ASEAN grew to almost $226 billion in the year 2024. It is up 8.5%. Recent study have showed that even amid the uncertainties, the businesses in our region, they continue to demonstrate resilience. The experience of COVID-19 definitely have strengthened their preparedness and even fosters confidence. In fact, in a recent survey we done, 60% of ASEAN businesses, they still plan to invest in ASEAN within the next 12 months. However, we all know we cannot be complacent. Global tariff changes, they definitely are testing many of our industries. And long-term priorities such as energy, food, water and resources security all remain on our agenda. Now, to further navigate these uncertainties, our region today is guided by the ASEAN 2045, our shared future. This is really the bold outlook that we have charted out for the next 2 decades with its integral plan. We also have a 5-year plan. It's called the AEC Strategic Plan, 2026 to 2030, which is going to naturally help us incorporating this vision and bring about execution of the priorities that are going to be critical, not only for addressing the challenges of today, but also for shaping a sustainable and a forward-looking future. At its core, I want to assure you that growth is not pursued just for its own sake. But more importantly, growth is there to uplift the growing upper middle class of ASEAN and also to enhance the quality of our people for all of ASEAN. And through this podcast series, we will take you behind the scenes of these priorities. We will show you how they are shaping our region and how they will be influencing businesses like you. And how, of course, you can seize the opportunity that are going to be brought forward in the next 2 decades. Once again, let me welcome all of you to the AEC Viewpoints, where diverse voices are going to be shaping ideas for ASEAN's economic future. Let us dive into this timely conversation together.
Welcome to the inaugural episode of ASEAN Economic Community, or AEC Viewpoints, where bold ideas, breakthrough thinkings, and regional changemakers come together to reimagine tomorrow's economy. My name is Andini Effendi, and I am delighted to take you through this important conversation, detailing ASEAN's economic achievements thus far and how businesses across the region can harness this regional momentum. As we face global uncertainties brought by technological transformation, climate change disruption, and the ever-changing landscape of our trade policies, ASEAN is not sitting still. We are not just planning for the future, we are building it. And the ASEAN Economic Community, or AEC Strategic Plan 2026-2030, which was launched by ASEAN leaders at the 46th ASEAN Summit in May 2025, provided us with a clear roadmap, a bold push for innovation ecosystems, sustainability, and cross-sector collaboration. So, what will it take to shape a brimming ASEAN with a resilient future for its businesses? Joining us, we have remarkable speakers, business leaders shaping that transformation from different angles. We have Helen Wong, the managing partner of AEC Ventures, with well-versed experiences on sustainable financing and women economic empowerment. We have Raymond Yee, the Vice President for Customs and Regulatory Affairs at DHL Express, and Rifki Weno, the Executive Director of the ASEAN Business Advisory Council, or ASEAN-BAC. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll go to Raymond first. So Raymond, looking at we see that a seamless logistic is essential for ASEAN's integration approach. So what tangible benefit do you, as DHL Express, experience from this ASEAN's connectivity initiatives?
Thank you, Andini, for this invitation. From DHL's perspective, there is a lot of potential for ASEAN. I think a lot of businesses also see that business potential in ASEAN. But I would like to cite an EU ASEAN Business Council business sentiment survey that has recently been concluded of about 400 European companies in ASEAN, where they support this view that 88% of the respondents saw the ASEAN economic integration as important for their business success. However, 77% of them still saw a lot of barriers for efficient supply chain. Now, for DHL, obviously, we see ASEAN, as I mentioned earlier, as a market and export base for the rest of the world, with lots of potential for growth. It is one of our key growth markets. And DHL obviously also supports any integration efforts that ASEAN is taking and sees so much potential in that. The challenge, of course, is, as we saw from the EU ASEAN Business Council survey, which very much supports DHL's own view and experiences in terms of supply chain efficiency and connectivity, that much more can be done. So we do, of course, recognize that till now, a lot of work has gone into producing ASEAN plans, ASEAN agreements, and there's been a lot of improvements. And certainly we do not doubt that. For example, the ASEAN Trading Goods Agreement was upgraded. They have the ASEAN Single Window. They have the ASEAN Customs Transit System. They also have the ASEAN Harmonized Tariff Nomenclature, which is a region-wide HS code. But of course, from DHL, from an industry perspective, we view that much more can be done, particularly now, as you say, given the challenging global circumstances and the changing global trade order. We feel that the ASEAN's Community Vision 2045 to elevate economic integration, enhancing supply efficiency, supply chain efficiency are all aligned to this need for elevating ASEAN cooperation. And so we are confident that ASEAN has the capability to elevate and strengthen its integration efforts, and we would like to see more from that perspective.
So based on your experience, Raymond, before I go to Rifki, what can be done differently or more enhancement, I guess, in the long run?
Basically, obviously, ASEAN has the right plans in place. They have the right vision. The question now is, how do we then elevate that, right? ASEAN has made a number of commitments. The challenge we have, of course, for industry is seeing that translated at the ground level, because as we all say, right, the proof is in the pudding. And so if there are plans that have been put in place, but then very limited monitoring of what goes on the ground, then I think that's a challenge. The fact that ASEAN has an elevated and a new community vision, which is good, I think the challenge is on the implementation and the execution of all these initiatives.
I think, Rifki, you also know more about that, but from your perspective, you're part of ASEAN-BAC advocacy. How does it help shape the initiatives that truly make an impact for businesses? Especially from Raymond's experience, there are still work needs to be done in terms of implementation on the ground.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting ASEAN-BAC to this very, very good podcast. To give you some little bit of context, I think the value of ASEAN-BAC lies in its role as a bridge between the private sector and governments. We provide a unified voice for businesses across the region. We're able to advocate for policies that address real-world challenges and seize opportunities. But more importantly, our advocacy is less about broad concepts and more about concrete, actionable proposals. Over the years, we have done advocacies on regional payment ecosystem through the ASEAN QR code mechanism. And then right now, we are advancing our most significant proposals, which is the ASEAN Business Entity Framework. This initiative asks ASEAN government to create a new category of companies that will be granted greater operational flexibility, such as the free movement of people, outsource operations, and help them to truly become regional businesses. And absolutely, in today's uncertain world, ASEAN governments are engaging more closely with ASEAN-BAC and its members than ever before. The current global climate, marked by geopolitical shifts, economic volatility, and supply chain disruptions, has underscored the importance of a strong, unified ASEAN economic bloc. And with this more intensive engagement with the ASEAN government, we have made very clear to the government that now is the time to make implementation very, very important in your agenda. I think a lot of plans and strategies and free trade agreements are already in place, which is very good. So we, as a business from ASEAN-BAC, working with the EU ASEAN Business Council, working with DHL, our job is to make sure that government knows what's happening on the ground, what's not working, what's the stumbling block, and what are the barriers to implement these free trade agreements. So those are the important agenda right now. So we have formal consultation with the ASEAN leaders and ASEAN ministers, but over the years, we always need to make sure to them that you need to implement things and not just put strategies on paper.
Right. And I want to talk regarding like the resilience and the sustainability of what we're talking about so far. So to Raymond first. So Raymond, DHL Express has an extensive regional network, including tailored shipping solutions for e-commerce. Now, given the shifting global economic landscape, how is this impacting the logistical operations across the region? And what are your strategies to deploy to respond to these impacts?
Thank you for that question. So for DHL, we operate a network business. We're not just regional, although in ASEAN, we have been in ASEAN for more than 50 years. In fact, our first overseas station outside the US was the Philippines in 1971. So we've been here for a long time. But at the same time, we also have an extensive global network. We are present in over 220 territories around the world. And we do pride ourselves to be one of the world's most international company, where for Asia, no one knows Asia or indeed ASEAN like we do. So for DHL, we will continue to focus on delivering our core service to our loyal customers across all territories using the strength of our global network. At the same time, as some of you may know, DHL Express is part of a larger DHL group, which offers a comprehensive suite of logistics services ranging from ocean, road, air freight, as well as comprehensive supply chain and warehousing solutions. So this allows us to serve customers who are looking to restructure their supply chains in response to the changing global environment, particularly what's happening in the US. Now, in addition to that, let's not forget that there are emerging industries which offer much potential for growth. For example, in the green energy sector, in AI, in technology, and so on. So there are always opportunities out there. And as we say in DHL with our can-do spirit, right? Never waste a crisis. So we will ensure that, of course, we'll continue to support these emerging sectors. And there's always a silver lining in the cloud.
To you, Rifki, so you're from the business side as well. So what are like the things that the private sectors are mostly concerned about having this global and regional challenges?
This based on my extensive engagement with businesses in the region. While issues like unilateral tariff measures are a major concern and can indeed dictate short-term strategies, I think they are often a symptom of a much larger, more fundamental problem. I think the need for ASEAN to truly collaborate and not compete with each other is the most important thing that we need to take in place. This requires moving past the low-hanging fruit of tariff reduction and tackling the more complex issues of non-tariff barriers.
So what does that really mean in industry terms, right? So you imagine you're moving shipments from Jakarta to Surabaya, but now it's from Jakarta to Singapore. In our view, a single production base is where it's seamless. There shouldn't be a border when you're moving from something from Jakarta to Singapore, simply from Jakarta to Surabaya, right? So every time there is a border where there are bureaucracy, there are requirements for approval and uncertain procedures and requirements, that creates cost within the supply chain, right? And then for businesses, that becomes a challenge.
So I guess I will open this question for a discussion with you, gentlemen. So looking at the challenges that you guys are mentioning earlier, so what should be like the priority in terms of like, if we want to be a community, if we want to be the AEC, what should be like the priority for the policymakers to put on top of their list? But what would be like the number 1 and 2, according to you both?
So maybe I can start, Rifki, if you want to add, right? So from our perspective, the first thing is the primacy of a legal framework between ASEAN countries if they make a commitment that they would implement. Because from a business perspective, if I were to make an investment, a foreign investment into an ASEAN country on the expectation that I'm trying to access the ASEAN market, I want to know if I can really access the ASEAN market. So that's one. So that comes back to perhaps what Rifki was talking about is, in terms of preventing any unilateral regulations that create additional barriers to entry. And so it comes down to governance within ASEAN, implementing what they say they will do, so that there is some level of certainty that's given to business. Now, every time also they do enact a regulation, then they should also review it to see whether the intended impact was there, or whether it was a negative impact, whether it was a positive impact, and so on, right? Those kinds of governance, I think, would give businesses a little bit more comfort and confidence. But the silver lining in this is that ASEAN is still a dynamic economy, right? And we should, as I mentioned, we should never waste this crisis because the opportunities there are immense.
Rifki, is there anything that you want to add?
Yes, I think it'll be important to focus on the implementation of DEFA, the Digital Economic Framework Agreement. I think for the ASEAN businesses, this will be a very, very important regulations that we need to consider, since there will be a lot more emphasis on digital by the businesses as well. I think for DEFA, the point on cross-border data flows will be very, very important for the businesses at the moment. I don't think it makes sense for businesses to have to store data in each of the respective ASEAN member states. If there is going to be a very clear regulation citing that there will be a data flows seamlessly between the ASEAN member states, this will be a very, very big win for the ASEAN businesses as a whole. So we feel like DEFA will be very, very important for ASEAN to leapfrog that digital economy in 2030. And also get that GDP growth very much growing in 2030 as well. I think just to add, I think transparency is the most important thing here. If you have a transparent mechanism on how do you resolve those barriers, then it will be a big win for the businesses. At least there are some transparency procedures that are there and a predictability for the businesses in the region.
Helen, I go to you now. So how do you see ASEAN economic integration agenda being factored in by AZ Ventures in its investments decision and also expansion strategies?
Thank you. Yes, AC Ventures, we are a venture capital firm with about 500 million under management, and we invest across different sectors. As you know, most venture capitalists, we like to look for large markets. So comparing, say, for example, Southeast Asia, it's a 3 trillion economy. And so if we can expand from Indonesia to other parts of Southeast Asia, it's actually quite a big market, and with 650 million people. It's still smaller than China, but comparable actually in GDP size to India. And that's what makes it such an exciting opportunity. And with greater integration within ASEAN, including in particular the free flow of capital, as well as talent, and as well as goods, that will make this market a lot more exciting for venture capitalists. As an example, we do see that, for example, the removal of trade frictions, greater trade integration would mean that supply chains will be much stronger, and Southeast Asia on the whole can export more to the rest of the world. At the same time, for us as venture capitalists, exits in capital markets are also very important. And so having a more integrated capital market would also help exits for us. And how do we accomplish that? For example, allowing dual listings, exchange of IPOs, as well as a more integrated regional stock market will really help to boost the venture capital market.
Mm-hmm. So which one do you think should be a priority looking back now? So you've mentioned all the opportunities, right? So what should be like the priority if we're talking about a strategic plan for AEC?
Okay, so yeah, we invest across different sectors, as I mentioned. So digital economy has been very big, and I think that we have reaped a lot of the rewards looking at the sectors such as fintech and e-commerce, which have grown very quickly. I think greater integration would accelerate the process even further. As you see, for example, there is talk about a unified QR code to enable cross-border payments. We also see like with trade tariffs, trade borders coming down, that will also help to have more free flow of goods and products. That will also help to boost the whole GDP.
So we, as you know, ASEAN leaders adopted the AEC Strategic Plan 2026-2030 in May 2025 and launching the next phase of regional integration that began in 2015. So this coincides with the final year of implementing the current AEC Blueprint 2025. So we already discussed like what needs to be done and urgently has to be done. So if building on this existing foundation and experiences that you have shared, what should be the key implementation priorities for the new strategic plan 2026 and 2030?
Yeah, maybe I have some about 6 ideas here, and some of this the EU ASEAN Business Council has prepared a paper for ASEAN governments. I think the first one is maintain the primacy of the World Trade Organization. ASEAN has always been open-oriented economies. They've grown because of the export-orientedness, and they survived and they thrived because of the certainty that was accorded by the World Trade Organization. It's the legal framework that with disciplines for countries on implementation for trade, right? So there should be, as Rifki said, right, and I completely agree, no unilateral trade restrictions, no tit-for-tat restrictions, right? Maintain the primacy of the WTO disciplines. Anytime there's a trade dispute, use WTO or ASEAN frameworks to address them so that there is proper governance and transparency that's given to businesses. So that's one. The second one is ASEAN has a trade in goods agreement. They are also members of other free trade agreements, right? The RCEP, right? The Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. Some are members of the CPTPP. There are ASEAN +1 free trade agreements, and we ask for quick and full implementation of the upgraded trading goods agreement, the RCEP. We all look at expanded free trade agreements with other ASEAN dialogue partners, right? So that's the second one. The third one, of course, which is a lot in my area, is fulfill simplified paperless customs procedures, right? National single windows, where it's a single point of contact. They submit data to get everything cleared without having to go through different agencies in government, right? So that's the third one. The fourth one, we talked about non-tariff barriers, stronger governance on non-tariff barriers elimination, right? And then the fifth one is look at supply chain, right? If ASEAN wants to pull and develop industry and sectors, you've got to look at it from a sectoral perspective. So, for example, the automotive sector, the semiconductor sector, the textiles and apparel sector, what do those supply chains within ASEAN look like? And then determine where those bottlenecks are and find how you can streamline those bottlenecks. So, for example, you may be able to take advantage of the skilled labor in one country with a more technological sector in another country and find complementarities across the ASEAN countries. So that kind of approach could work. And then for me, the final one is, as I mentioned earlier, meaningful regulatory reviews and an assessment of the impact of any regulation a country does to ensure that the intended impact and positive impact is there so that they can be reviewed, they can be tweaked, or they can be eliminated if the intended impact was negative, more negative than expected. So some level of governance there as well.
Rifki?
Yeah, for us, I think we have a long list of tangible achievements for ASEAN. I think we have the ASEAN single window, we have the ASEAN taxonomy for sustainable finance, we have cross-border QR payments. These are very, very good, undeniable successes. I think they prove that ASEAN has a strong foundation and is capable of building the frameworks needed for deeper integration. However, I think the question for the new strategic plan of 2026-2030 is not about creating a new and a longer list of agreements. I think it is about execution. So for businesses, the biggest challenge isn't a lack of a roadmap. I think it's the gap between the agreements made at the top level and the implementation on the ground. So the key implementation priorities must be centered on making these agreements work for every companies in ASEAN, from the MNCs, the multinational corporations, to the SMEs. So we suggest that ASEAN should focus on removing these non-tariff barriers. The ASEAN single window is a very great start, but I think we need to tackle these inconsistent customer procedures, differing product standards, and fragmented licensing requirements that still hinder the free flow of goods and services. Secondly, I think I agree with Raymond of identifying those supply chains in ASEAN, so not competing with each other. So once you know the strong points of each ASEAN member states, you will then collaborate and not compete with each other.
Helen, I go to you now.
So especially as we move to a more AI world, especially generative AI, a lot of us are looking into investing in this area. And if we can have very unified AI rules and regulations, I think that would also help to spur further investment in this area. I was just going to add also for green sustainable growth as well. I think there is talk about, like for example, a regional grid that could allow renewable energy to flow more freely across different countries.
Yeah, everything should be more seamless, I think, for the implementation. So, okay, from your point of view, how can ASEAN leverage this initiative for businesses, not just to harness emerging opportunities, but also we never know what's going to happen ahead, right? So we have to navigate uncertainties in the future. So how do you think ASEAN should leverage this?
I think ASEAN should try to encourage as much intra-ASEAN flow of, as I mentioned, goods, capital, even talent, that will encourage the entrepreneurs to also be able to grow their businesses and take more regional expansion risk. And at the same time, foster growth in the equity and private equity market.
So we also want this AAC to be inclusive and impactful for every one of us in ASEAN countries, right? So I guess from your core business, how do you contribute to promote this inclusivity and also especially with women and marginalized communities across the region? How do we make that everyone can join, can take a part of the AAC?
So, DHL, we have this, our mission is to connect people and improve lives. So we have this program, which we call Go Trade, where we train small and medium-priced enterprises in order to help them develop as well as to access the global marketplace. Now, globally, we have this thing we call the Go Trade program. We have trained for the last 5 years about 13,000 SMEs, and 4,000 to 4,500 of those SMEs were women-led. That's global, right? Within ASEAN, we have about an estimate of about 2,400 SMEs that we have trained in the last 5 years, right? We collaborate with the governments in Malaysia, with the Jakrepreneur in Indonesia, a lot of local organizations, the Asia Foundation, and as many local associations and agencies. There's one called She Trades as well under the International Trade Center. So we do as much as we can for ASEAN. Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, Cambodia, Thailand, and Laos are key countries where we are very, very active in. And we will continue to see Go Trade as one of the means in which we will be able to reach out to communities to help to get better women engagement and to get SMEs more integrated into the global economy.
I think for ASEAN-BAC, our core activities are contributing to this in several tangible ways. We have legacy projects on inclusive business models, where instead of treating marginalized communities as beneficiaries of charity, I think the inclusive business models are now integrating those marginalized people directly into their value chains. So in Indonesia chairmanship in 2023, I think we have this inclusive business model in agriculture, where the large agribusinesses are working with smallholder farmers, many of whom are women, through an inclusive closed-loop models, where these models provide farmers with access to better seeds, technology, financing, and guaranteed market for their produce, leading to higher incomes and greater economic stability. We also have our mentorship programs. We have this ASEAN Mentorship for Entrepreneurs program, where our council members and the large companies within our members are creating mentorship and sponsorship program to support the career progression of women and also MSMEs as well. So we try our best through our legacy projects to be as inclusive as possible and to create a direct impact to the communities in ASEAN.
At AC Ventures, we do look at impact investing. We look at it as a form of sustainable investment, which means that we do not just look at growth at all costs, but also growth that would be more inclusive and growth that will also promote, for example, female founders. And we have about 40% of our portfolio, but basically have female founders. We also look at female customers as a percentage of the overall customers that are being served by our portfolio companies. And we find that there's a lot that we can do in these areas. Also in areas for climate and sustainability, we have invested in renewable energy, waste management, electric vehicle, electric mobility, as well as what we call climate smart agriculture. So those are some areas that are emerging and quite interesting in this part of the world. We do find that a lot of electric vehicles are being adopted in this region. And it would be great if, we as ASEAN, we actually do not compete against each other. We work with each other to make sure that, we promote these green initiatives. I think we have seen that different policies used by different countries to your investment into their country. But I think it would really serve ASEAN much better if we work together.
Yeah, more partnerships, less competition, I guess. This is a rather personal question. So I would like to ask your vision, how do you envision ASEAN Economic Community as a person from your own background, AEC in 2030? So that's 5 years from now. So how do you envision yourself being part of AEC, and what would it look like by then?
As the businesses operating in ASEAN, we would love to have an ASEAN Economic Community where our goods are cross-bordered very seamlessly, and our talent within ASEAN also travels very seamlessly as well. So we would like those two to be happening in 2030. Okay. This will be very, very helpful for the businesses in ASEAN.
Very well. Raymond?
Me, I take it at a more personal level. So if you travel in Europe, right, you see on the trains people from all over Europe, and they travel seamlessly. For me, it's about building an ASEAN identity. And as you see now, intra-ASEAN travel has grown. What Rifki and the ABAC are proposing on an ASEAN-based registration, to me, makes absolute sense, right? Where you get companies who are not just committed to their own countries, but to building ASEAN, supply chains within ASEAN. So as an individual, for me, I see an ASEAN identity with people, friends, as well as business associates, as well as, people that I work within business, as well as personal relationships, right? That for me is the real ASEAN identity, because I think the region has so much potential. It's about empowering ASEAN and the resilience of and the diversity of this region with such level of diversity, yet such level of peace in relative terms compared to other regions. Nowhere else has this kind of diversity and yet stability, right? So for me, it's really about building that ASEAN identity and empowered ASEAN outlook.
ASEAN 2030, I hope it would be a place where there's more free flow of just people, goods, and capital. I hope that it will be a place where we can trade freely with each other, and also in partnership with other bigger blocs. And at the same time, we have a regional stock exchange that will allow listings of various Southeast Asian companies, and also like free flow of talents. Basically, people can work freely in each in all the different ASEAN countries.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully more seamless market entering in and out of each member of ASEAN countries. Yeah, so more connectivity. Thank you so much. Thank you to Helen, Raymond, and Rifki. Thank you for your insights. And to our listeners, your voice is a part of ASEAN's future too. In our conversation today, spanning from supply chain resilience to sustainability transition, reflects a fundamental shift. ASEAN has moved beyond adaptation to leadership. With shared vision, common purpose, and dedication to enduring impact, Our region is not just participating in the global economy, it is redefining what regional economic integration can achieve. Spread the conversation, spark new ideas, let us narrate the future we want to live in. My name is Andini Effendi, and this is AEC Viewpoint. Thank you for watching.